Got it. Who needs to got it?
Hmm?
Who needs to got it?
Michael? Is it which computer is that on?
All right. Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Kingsport MTPO meeting today. Call this meeting to order. Welcome everybody from on behalf of the board and our chairman and Alderman Paul Montgomery to see virtual today.
No.
So sorry you get first item of business, Leslie.
Okay, this is an in-person meeting with remote access available through the Zoom webinar. It is being recorded and an audio or video recording will be posted on our website. Those online, if you have problems hearing us, please put a note in the chat box. There will be a couple of opportunities for public comment. You can raise your hand, you can put a note in the chat box, use the Q&A box, any of those options will work. Online, you may not be able to hear the discussion in the room as much. We're trying a different method using some microphones. So we may have to have anybody that has questions come up and use the microphone. So joining us remotely today, our panelist will be Sean Santaya from Federal Highway, Tennessee. He's been on another assignment for several months, so happy to have him back with us. And then Jim Meyer, who's the consultant with AECOM for the long range plan, will be giving an update. We also have Sullivan County Commissioner Angie Stanley, David Jones from Tri-City Regional Airport, and then from TDOT, we've got Jennifer Marshall, Michael Dick, Rhonda Sawyer, and Taylor Lee. And because we do have remote attendees, we will be conducting a roll call attendance and a roll call for each vote. So I'll go ahead with the roll call for attendance right now. Vice Chair Jimmy Adkins.
Present.
Blake Ayler. Troy Ebert. Chase Milner. Michael Thompson. And Michael is the proxy for the city of Kingsport since Chairman Paul Montgomery is not in attendance. And Amber Torbett. We do not have a Churchill, Mount Carmel, Hawkins County rep. So Bill had asked me to introduce himself. Okay. That will be it for me right now.
All right. Thank you, Leslie. I guess it's so lucked out that I get to run this meeting today. I know we've not done it in a while. And I know we've got some special guests here in the audience. So we'd like to go around the room and everybody introduce yourselves and who they are with. I guess by default, I'll start. Jimmy Atkins, Winter Wisco Planning District Commissioner.
And Leslie Phillips, MPO staff.
We'll start on this side and work our way down in the audience. Yeah. Awesome. Appreciate you all for being here. Especially my brethren from the Commonwealth. Bill. All right. Moving along to item number 2, public comment on agenda items and agenda items only. Would like to open the floor for any discussion on agenda items. There's a 5-minute limitation.
And if anybody online has any comments, just raise your hand or put a note in the chat box so I can see it.
Anything you're like?
Nope, nothing.
All right, being there's no further discussion, we'll move on to the next item, the approval of minutes from September 2nd, 2021. Hope everyone's had a chance to review those minutes. Are there any questions, comments, concerns? Thank you. I have a motion by Chase, duly seconded by Blocky over here. The questions on approval of the minutes from the recorded meeting of the September 2nd, 2021 NTPO meeting. All those in favor, please
Roll
signify
call.
by saying, oh yeah, roll call. Man, I ain't used to that. Yep.
Oh, Vice Chair Jimmy Atkins,
Aye.
Blake Ayler, Troy Everett, Stacy Milner, Michael Thompson, and Amber Corbett.
Thank you all. Bob Leslie's so awesome at her job. She keeps us all in line. Moving on to item number 4, annual list of priority projects. Please pay attention. There is a action item attached to this. So Leslie Phillips and TDOT representatives. Floor is yours.
Okay, so every year, TDOT asks us to rank certain projects for consideration for the 3-year plan. What you're seeing on the screen now is the top table are the projects that TDOT has asked us to rank. The bottom table are ones that we've asked to be considered in the future. We left them the same rankings as last year. You'll see the 2020 ranking and then the 2021. The only one that is not on there from last year is the number 2 project, which actually has been funded for construction. So it was pulled off of this list for ranking. But everything else that TDOT has asked us to rank, we've left in the same ranking as last year. We did internally as a staff re-rank some of those that we've asked to be included for future consideration. Just because we felt some of them were a little more higher priority projects than some of the ones that we had ranked higher previously. So these are just our staff proposed rankings. You all can change that however you see fit. Troy, you have any? Okay, we'll have Eric Wilson.
Congratulations. Pass the torch.
All right, can y'all hear me? Okay. So looking at this list here, of the top 6 there, the top 3, which are in the construction phase, these are projects that are currently in the right-of-way phase. So they've started right-of-way acquisitions. Of the 3 there, Sullivan 126, y'all are familiar with that one. We've been buying right-of-way on it for several years now. We're in probably the 70-75% range on it right now. We have a lot of it done. It's a good candidate to get construction funding in the 3-year plan coming up. So that's what we'll be on these ones that list construction phase. These have not yet been identified in a 3-year plan for construction. And 126 would be a good candidate. Sullivan 93 project, we've completed right-of-way acquisitions. It would also be a good candidate. I can ask any general questions about the project, just feel free to ask me. The ITS expansion of I-81, this is actually being developed out of headquarters, but it's in the right-of-way phase. It would be a good candidate to move forward. So I would say out of the 3 you have listed here, we would agree with the rankings, as far as where we're at with development of plans. For the 3 right-of-way projects you have listed, you have Rock Springs Road, State Route 347. The second phase of State Route 126 from east of Cooks Valley Road to I-81, that's that second phase. And then we have a Washington Sullivan State Route 36 The Rock Springs project, State Route 347, we have been developing preliminary plans. We're out of the three projects, we're probably the furthest along in developing those plans. With it listed as a right-of-way phase, all three of these projects have only been funded for PE, preliminary engineering design. So they would have to be in the next 3-year plan for right-of-way to move forward. So Rock Springs Road would be a good candidate to move forward in the 3-year plan. The second phase of State Route 126. We're in the preliminary design phase for it. It is moving forward. It would be a good candidate in our next 3-year plan. Washington Sullivan State Route 36. Out of the three projects, that's the one where we are just getting started on. We're right now finalizing the survey activities. So we have not yet begun preliminary design on that one. So out of the three, that would be the toughest for us to deliver in the next 3-year plan. So I would say based off your rankings here, you're in line with our development. I don't know much about the other list of the PE projects. I can say that the extension of State Route 357 from I-81 to State Route 126, we have had funding made available to begin the planning studies on that. So we are underway with that. So we have had some, I mean, it's already got some funding towards it. So it could be prepared the next couple of years to go to start doing design. So the other ones are ones we haven't. Of course, we're all familiar with the interchange project, 526 and State Route I-81. I think we all agree that'd be a good project. We just haven't looked at it yet. I would say so. Yes, yeah, we're in demo.
We do have other mics on order.
Any discussion, questions, comments, concerns? Bill, can you speak up a little bit, please?
Can you hear? Yeah. Johnson City MPO has put that on their list as well as ITS on Interstate 26. Even though it hasn't probably been programmed by anybody, but both MPOs want some ITS improvements or implementation of ITS on Interstate 26, because it has basically none right now. So they're also supporting that.
Any other further discussion? A motion on the floor made by Michael, second by Amber, on the approval of the resolution as presented for the annual, what is that, 2021 annual list of priority projects. Roll call.
Good job. Vice Chair Jimmy Adkins,
Aye.
Blake Ayler, Troy Everett, Chase Milner, Michael Thompson, Amber Corbett. Thank you.
All right, moving right along. Agenda item number 5, annual federal funds obligation reports.
Okay, every year, within 90 days after the end of the federal fiscal year, September 30th. So by the end of December, we have to post all the federal obligations that have been made in our Kingsport MTPO area. So that is what you're seeing. It's in your packet, but it's also what you're seeing. It will be posted on our website as well. We have the one page for TDOT projects. And then we also have transit on Tennessee side. And then Virginia does things a little different. I have this one marked draft because there was a question about one of the funding sources. So we were digging into that a little deeper. So just in case it changed, but several of these pages just show zeros because everything in our area in Virginia is done in the grouping. So this is where we've gotten to the money part of the Virginia report. But there's no vote required on this. It's just for informational purposes, something we're required to post within 90 days after the end of the federal fiscal year. And as I said, this will be posted on our website and after we finalize the Virginia portion.
Quick question, after it is finalized, does the technical committee need to look at it? Any questions, comments, concerns? For new record, item number 6, long-range transportation plan update. Said they're out before you, Jim, so hint, hint, nudge, nudge. Man,
And I will say, while Jim's getting ready, a lot of the executive board will have seen some of this information before, but others here have not. And as I said, Sean with Federal Highway has been on a special assignment. So I don't know that he's seen any of this, at least in the past 4 months, related to our long-range plan. Okay, Jim, try your sound.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, I am sharing my screen here. All right, you guys seeing the full presentation there? Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
yes, sir.
Okay, and you can see the screen okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Sorry, I heard a little hard time here and there. Yeah, so as Leslie mentioned, some of this information will have been already seen by some of the members here. So I'm going to cover it fairly quickly. If there are questions by individuals who haven't seen this so far, please feel free to jump in, or we'll have some time at the end. One of the things that we do want to talk about is kind of piggybacks on what you were already talking earlier about the priority projects, and we'll get into that on items 3 and 4 there a little bit, but I'll just jump in and kind of update you on where we're at right now and where we're heading. So we are currently in the process of drafting the LRTP. We had a couple months ago, actually earlier in the springtime, I guess, met with TDOT to go over the schedule for the review process. And the date that we need to deliver the plan by, I believe, was December 8th. But we're going to try to get that draft actually completed here in November. We'll have some chapters going to the MPTO staff for review. But we'll get that draft over to TDOT and VDOT for review. Once we get comments back and address those, we'll get that over to Federal Highway in January. And then we'll have time there in early spring next year for a public review. And we'll wrap up the plan and get that adopted in May or June timeframe. So we're on pace right now. And I think as you'll see on the couple items that I mentioned there, really the identification of the fiscally constrained plan is kind of the big item where we're at right now. So we did do a second round of public outreach, and MetroQuest was utilized on that. We were able to use the subscription from VDOT, so that was really helpful and really appreciate that. We ended up getting 200 surveys. We did a survey earlier at the start of this project, and we had around 100, and so we were really pleased that we were able to increase that participation the second time around. Just real quickly, I'm not going to show all of the screens, but we did have one of them was an allocation screen where people could allocate coins, their budget, to different categories that matched up with some of the goals and objectives of the plan. And you can see the results here. These are consistent with what we've seen in the first survey, what we've been hearing throughout this project, that building the economy is really a critical piece of this long-range plan. And that's and also addressing safety issues. Those being the top two priorities, and then other items that kind of fall in there, a few of them in that spending range of $11 or $12 there for the allocation. But this is consistent with what we've seen, what we've heard from stakeholders, and is reflected in our project scoring weight that I'll show you later. Through the analysis, we started to identify some projects, priority projects, or what we thought would be higher priority projects. And so we included 10 of those in the MetroQuest on a map. People could click on those individual colored markers there that you see, and description would pop up, a short description on each one of those projects, and then they could give a thumbs up or thumbs down in terms of whether or not these were priority projects, in their opinion, if they viewed them as a priority project for the region. And so what you see on the screen are the results of the public feedback on that. I don't think there's any real big surprises here. Obviously that first one on reconstructing the 8126 interchange, that's on the list that you talked about already. We'll talk more about that in a few minutes. SR 36, improve I-26 was one that actually came in fairly high there. There are some capacity issues that we're showing in the future with the travel model, and we'll talk about that. And then we'll talk about some of these other projects. These are all important projects that could factor into the fiscal constraint analysis that we're going to be doing. Maybe I'll just pause there briefly before we jump into the project identification and scoring to see if anybody has any questions on those survey results. I know I went through that pretty quickly, so. If not, I will continue on. So the one area we wanted to provide an update on today is just an overview of the project identification and how projects were scored. And again, some members here of the committee have seen this, and we've gone into a little more detail. And this, I'll just give a high level overview today. But in discussing this with the MTPO staff, we felt it would be good to use a similar methodology with the project scoring. And so we'll show you the evaluation measures that we came up with. There were weights put on each of the criteria, but we did go through and update some of the measures to better reflect the updated goals and objectives. And one other area as well, with performance measures being such an important part of performance-based planning and setting targets that you're all familiar with as the MPO there. We wanted to make sure that we incorporated some of those measures that would specifically relate back and support FHWA performance targets and the ultimately the state targets that have been adopted. So we did go through and we reviewed the 2040 LRTP projects. A lot of those projects still carried over. And we wanted to make sure that in looking at areas of concerns and need to see if there are other projects that should be addressed. And when we had an executive workshop, we went into a little bit of more detail on each one of these issues there. You see on the left-hand side with network connectivity, safety, congestion, traffic, restricted corridors, traffic operations. And so this is a combined map that kind of highlights all of the needs. And so one of the things we're doing as we develop the draft plan is we're talking about these needs that you see there. And for example, one of the things we identified with network connectivity over on the east side there, that orange arrow represents an extension or that we've talked a little bit about, 357. But what we're doing from a higher level perspective is taking a look at the region and identifying from a functional classification standpoint, kind of the need to have an enhanced connection over there. And you can see some of the other orange arrows there that connect over and reflect some of the travel movements that are occurring between Virginia and the eastern part of the metropolitan planning area. And so there's a number of things that factor in here and that we're considering. And you can see safety concerns that have been documented on Stone Drive up along the US 23 corridor, and other issues as well, including the 8126 interchange there. So what we did then is we mapped each of the potential projects. You can see on the screen there, it might be a little hard to see, but each has a project ID, and that links up to a table with a description, the geographic area of the project. And so we went through and identified those, and we then went ahead and applied a scoring process of the 20 measures that you see on the screen here. And a number of these measures are GIS based. As I mentioned earlier, with safety there, we updated some of those measures to reflect more closely what safety performance measures are. And so as we go through and we do a GIS analysis to look at crashes and fatalities, serious injuries, we're putting a score on these projects. And for each one of these measures, there's a detailed list. We have an appendix that will go with this that outlines what the analysis was and what the thresholds were for the scoring, and what those point totals were. But you can see like operational efficiency. So we looked at level of service in terms of the travel demand model results. Some of these are not GIS based, and so the MTPO staff helped out in helping kind of score some of these as well. We looked at employment, population growth. We used the results of the recent bike pedestrian study for active transportation to score some of that, including looking at some of the impacts on environmental justice, and also looking at some environmental issues, see if there were any fatal flaws. And then, of course, last but not least, looking at economic development measures there as well, and making sure that we incorporate that into the process. So these were the scoring weights I mentioned earlier. These were consistent with what we had in the previous plan. So you can see the individual measures received this certain number of points. The yellow circles there are the totals per category. And then what we did, and this might be a little hard to see, but it's just a screen capture of a little bit of a much larger Excel file. The table here, the column that's kind of in the middle is the total score. So each of these projects received the total score with Stone Drive, and I'll show you that in a minute on a map, coming in with 72 points. State Route 36 came in right below that, and US 23 came in also right below that as well. One of the things that, with the scoring, and we've talked about this internally with the MPO staff, is that, the intent of this is not to say like the top scoring project here has to be the next project that you prioritize. We like to think of this as more of like 60 points or above. There would be reasons that any of these projects could be programmed or meet a need based upon the performance-based planning that we're doing. So it's really more of a tool to help inform the programming and the fiscal constraint analysis that we're doing. But this table will be available to look at in more detail if you wanted to see, how a project scores in terms of safety or economic development, or those factors. So here are the projects that scored 60 points or higher. You can see these on the map. So Stone Drive had projects, a couple projects there on the east side with some capacity issues. Project number 3 there on the west side also showed up. We have a lot of safety concerns, and when we talked about those needs, that was coming through. I mentioned US 23 scored, was tied there for second up in Virginia, and was a important project. I think we've heard a lot about that throughout the process. That's a priority. There's a couple of local ones on here, Bloomingdale Pike, Sullivan, that we'll want to come back and talk a little bit about. And then the I-2681 interchange also showing up in what we considered the top tier projects. And so I just wanted to give you a quick example. When we met with the executive board as part of the workshop, we kind of went through those projects in more detail, and we had confirmation that the needs, that those projects were representing the higher needs in the area. And so what we did was we kind of did a side by side. We went back to, here's that graphic on the left of our regional needs. Here's our top scoring projects. And then just as one example, for Stone Drive that I have highlighted there, that project was the highest ranked project, and it's addressing some capacity, safety concerns, operational issues over on that east side of the area. So we went through and kind of looked at each one of these to make sure that they addressed a need. And then tier 2 projects, again, I don't want to make it seem like, if you're scoring in the 50s or, that there's not a reason that some of these projects couldn't be programmed. And I think the one project here that I wanted to mention is, the 357 extension. And we've talked a little bit from our perspective and looking at the technical analysis that, with the growth that's occurring out on the east side of town, and that project 149 on the map there, has a lot of good benefits from a regional standpoint to support economic development growth, enhancing network connectivity. We did do some additional modeling to take a look at that corridor. It was pretty effective in accommodating future volumes. It was fairly consistent with the volumes that were identified in the TDOT 357 study. And so one of the things that we looked at, we did see that pulling some traffic volumes off of SR 36 and really kind of providing some relief over there as well. So, we feel that's a project that is a regional priority or need. And again, I think that's reflected in the discussion that you guys had earlier. I'll pause there, see if there's any questions on that before we get into the discussion of, now that we've kind of gone through and scored this, we want to see how much funding we have available and what projects we can allocate and program as part of the 2045 LRTP. So any questions?
There's nothing online. Is there anything in the room?
You have any questions from the room? Come on, somebody stop them with a good question.
And I'm sorry, I couldn't pick that up.
Oh, no,
There's
we're
nothing.
just asking for any questions here, Jim.
Okay.
Nope, you're good to go.
All right, thanks. So, the next part, really, and the last kind of main technical element that we're wrapping up and working our way through now is to really see how much revenue that
I think you froze up. Oh, I think we lost him. Let's see if he gets back on.
Jim, we still see your screen.
But we don't see you.
We don't see you.
The room is still working fine, Leslie, but
Okay.
he's frozen. He's frozen for me as well.
Okay.
Inflation factors. Let's see.
we have available.
Oh, Jim,
Hey, Jim.
I see you now. You're muted. Okay, I see your screen.
All right, am I back?
Yes.
All right, sorry about that. I'm not sure what happened. So I was saying that this is the really kind of last technical task that we have here. So we've worked with the staff, and Leslie's been really helpful to pull some historical data in terms of revenues. So we've gone back and looked at 2017 to actually 2022, what's programmed. And we've tried to allocate that to different funding sources or categories. We're inflating that. So what we're doing on that 2017 to 2022 is actually calculating an average over that time period. And that's our average that we're going to inflate at 3% annually through 2045 to reflect what revenues we would have available. On the project side, all of those potential projects that we had mapped, we've gone through and we've taken a look at those, and we've updated the cost to reflect the 2022 baseline planning level cost estimate. So in some cases, we've inflated those at 3%. We did have an engineer review all of those projects. Again, some are very conceptual, but we've gone through and we've adjusted the costs. We've gone through that with the MPO staff as well. And so we feel pretty comfortable on that. The other thing too, where we have a study like 357 extension, there's two options in there, two costs. We've gone through and kind of averaged those two options out just to give you a sense of how we've handled that with some existing studies. So one of the key things that we need to do when we're looking at programming the projects is accounting for year of expenditures, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But so the costs have been inflated at 5% annually through 2045. So we'll take that 2022 baseline cost and we're inflating that out to 2045. So if we're building if we build a project in 2040, that cost today then is obviously going to be inflated. So one thing on this slide, which Leslie, we've talked about this, not needing a formal vote on it or anything, but just any questions, concerns about the inflation rates, and maybe I'll turn that over to you for a minute.
Yeah, Troy had mentioned before that we don't need to actually have a resolution and a formal vote, but we do need the buy-in from the executive board members and kind of approval to use those 3% inflation factor for revenue and 5% inflation factor for cost. So does anybody have any?
I guess the first question I have is TDOT, why those percentages? How'd y'all calculate those?
5% comes from
Okay. 5% for revenue,
No,
3% revenue, 5% at cost.
5% for cost is what he's
Okay.
talking about.
Blake?
Yeah, I just got a couple of questions on this. So you know the 5%, where does 3% come from? And I thought overall.
So Jim, where did the 3% come from? I know the 5% is what Troy had gotten from some other TDOT folks, but the 3% revenue, is that something that you've used historically, or where did that come from?
The 3% I believe was, I can double check, but I thought that came from the last plan. That seemed pretty consistent with, well, actually on some other LRTPs I've worked on in other regions. I would say the 3% is actually probably on the high side a little bit. I've seen that closer to 2. I think that's why we just wanted to kind of put that out to the committee members today to make sure we're on the same page here.
I guess for me at VDOT, Jim, and I don't know if you can hear me, but
I guess my overall question, Jim, for VDOT would be, on the cost estimates inflated at 5% annually. I know that that's a number that was provided by TDOT. I would anticipate that 5% was applied to the Virginia one projects as well.
Yeah, we were just using that as a broad 5% for the region. So if there's other guidance on the Virginia projects, we can incorporate that.
Yeah, our location and design group at VDOT, as they always have, produces our inflation rates for us each year, and it's baked into Smart Scale and everything we do. So they have their own standardized rates that they utilize. I can't tell you 5% is not accurate, but what we'll have to do is we'll have to have them to review the percentage that is used to make sure that VDOT approves that percentage to be used on our projects, because we can't utilize an inflation rate that has been calculated by another state.
Okay. And you'll see on the next slide too, I've got when we're talking about the summary of revenues there, I've got some questions I need to follow up with you guys on. So.
Can you turn your mic back on still?
Okay, revenue projections, you said from the last plan, and that's probably just a trend line that we came up with, and the consultants at the time came up with a long-term trend line and just what it's tax revenue from the state come up in the last.
Yeah, the 3%.
Yeah.
It's just the project cost.
Okay, so this other board members okay with 3% revenue inflation rate
For the Tennessee projects?
for the revenue across the board? Not the projects, the revenue. He just said the 3%, he was okay. Right. And then the 5% for Tennessee projects, it will be reviewed by Virginia folks to see. Okay. Okay, we need to reflect this in the minutes, so I'm seeing how to put it in there, but, so Jim, it looks like we're good with the 3% revenue, inflation rate and the 5% on the Tennessee side, with, Virginia being researched a little further.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, and we can, that's a fairly easy adjustment in the calculations that we go through, so we can be sure to do that. Anything else on that, Leslie, or good to
We got, Troy's making a comment.
I don't know if you can hear me, Jim. If you don't see that project, it's not that project.
Troy said, make sure it's, these are MPO projects, not specifically TDOT projects and VDOT projects, but MPO projects.
MPO projects?
Okay. You can go ahead, Jim.
Okay. All right, so this is the table I was referring to, and I need to follow up with VDOT on this because the numbers we have are a little bit different. But what we were trying to do here for the revenue projections is, again, based on that 17 to 22 data, we put this into the funding categories there on the left-hand side. So we have the National Highway funding up on top there. So anything with interstate NHS. We have the STBG state. We have the safety funding in the middle, and STBG local, and then also local funding there. So again, based upon what we've had for really the past 6 years, we're looking at 2022 in here as well. We've come up with the annual average estimate there on the TDOT side, and again, I need to, after this call, work with VDOT to see if we can kind of fill in those same categories there. But ultimately what we're going to do, and once we have the VDOT numbers in there as well, is we project this out using that inflation rate for the revenue side, to project what money we'll have in the bands. And so one thing we did have on that STBG state funds, in a call that we had with TDOT, we were advised to include advanced construction funding in there. So that number does bump that, or that does help bump that funding category up. But we're taking that 19 million basically, and we'll project that out through the horizon year 2045. And again, once we have the VDOT numbers plugged in here, and I'll verify those, we'll do the same and project that out for our projected funding that we'll have available. So when we do that, what we're looking at is also kind of the project bands, or when we would start to program projects here, and it starts to get into how we look at year of expenditures again. And so we've kind of broken it down into, well, almost starting working backwards in the outer years. We have two 10-year bands, so 2026 to 2035, and then 2036 to 2045. And so what do we do with kind of that time period between, now and 2025? And so we've looked at that as 22 and 23 as really being kind of committed projects within the current TIP. Those have funding already identified. The TDOT 3-year strategic plan. And so we were advised that, if it's not in committed projects, if it's not in the 3-year strategic plan, it really shouldn't fall within one of these bands here. And then of course we want to factor in the smart scale priorities as well. So that's really kind of the next couple years are already covered under programming. But if we look at 24 and 25, and again, this is just looking at the TDOT numbers, we would again be looking at the VDOT numbers. So we have this 2-year band where we would have approximately $41 million, and you can kind of see how that funding is split up among the categories. And what we would be doing is then looking at trying to program projects. So for example, like the I-81 technology project, if that could be potentially programmed in 24, 25 as part of the LRTP, using NHPP funds, so we're looking at what projects we could kind of get in there. The other thing too, and when you look at that STBG state funding, we have about 20 million. And so I know, Troy, one of the things that we talked about, even with like a project like 126, where phase 1, maybe that phase 1 has to be broken down into some smaller segments, and maybe there's an opportunity here to allocate some of that 20 million to a project like that. And so we have to start to kind of take a look and see where we can allocate those fundings, or that funding. So when we're looking at 26 to 35 and that time frame, now we've got a 10-year period, which we have 248 million total in. You can see again how that's kind of broken out by category. So we have to go back and look at those costs, like 126, SR 36, projects like that, to see how they fit into this overall available revenue that we have. And then in the outer years, again, this is applying that 3% annual inflation factor. We have 334 million. So we can come back to that, but this is my last slide, really, that what I wanted to maybe have a little bit of discussion with the committee today is, Earlier in this meeting, you talked about some of those priorities. Some are showing up here on the list. And so I'd really like to see if there's any input or discussion around, how do we begin to program this, kind of keeping that funding that we just talked about on the last slide. We have SR 126, for example, phases 1 and 2. Do we program some of that money in 24-25 band? Do we program some of that in, the remaining part seems, at least a phase 1 seems to fit into the 26 to 2035 timeframe. And then also get your thoughts about projects. Obviously, the priority list that you talked about earlier is a shorter time frame. But for example, that 8126 interchange, is that a project that, from TDOT's perspective, could be included as a fiscally constrained project at some point in one of these outer bands? And so I think that's one question. Obviously with VDOT, the US 23 corridor is a much more kind of clear-cut project. I think, we've talked about some other projects that should be included up there as well. I think that becomes a little bit easier. I know it's a priority for the district, the 23 corridor. So, does some of that begin to get programmed in 24-25, or does that move to a 26-2035 time band? And then finally, thinking about local projects, I know like Bloomingdale Pike is one, Sullivan might be another one that we look at some of the funding there, but from a committee perspective, are there other thoughts on some local projects that might need to be included? So I threw a lot out there, and I'll just kind of pause and see if there's anybody has questions or thoughts on the programming piece of this and how that works with the LRTP.
Sean has his hand raised. So Sean, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Cool, thank you, Leslie. Hey, Jim, this comment might be targeted towards TDOT, it sounds like, but I want to come back to those funding sources that you mentioned. And you mentioned that you were operating under guidance to incorporate advanced construction funding into the STBG balance. And I just wanted to clarify, advanced construction is not a funding source. It's really a funding mechanism through which state funds can be applied to a project, and then the project can then be eligible for federal reimbursement at a later date, but it doesn't realistically mean there's additional funding available. So just wanted to make sure you guys weren't artificially inflating the level of funding that might be available. Just wanted to caution against that.
Yeah, no, thanks for the clarification, Sean. Yeah, that's a really good point to make there. So that, and this is why we wanted to bring that up, because see if there are any concerns about that. In looking at the advanced construction funding, Leslie, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think 2017 was the only year that we had some funds in there. Maybe there was another year. So it is kind of assuming, it bumps it up about 4 million in funding potentially. So, if that is not an appropriate way to approach it, or, if we need to explain that in the document, I think, it'd be good to just get some clarification, confirmation from everybody on that, I guess.
And I think I believe Troy was on this call as well. Jim had mentioned, because Matt Maservi was on the call with us, because the big thing was trying to figure out how to reflect the Improve Act projects in the long range plan. And so Jim had actually mentioned leaving out the AC funds that Matt said to include them, because a lot of times they're using the advanced construction funds for the Improve Act projects and then converting it to the federal, later on. So Matt did actually say to include those in our totals.
Also, Sean was talking about, it's not extra money, but it's just when you spend that money. If you have a 10-year ban, maybe spending it in 2027 instead of 2034 is the same money. just using it quicker. So it's not, like you said, it's not additional, it's just when in that band, you use that funding for particular projects.
And Jim, we will need to look at the local STBG. I didn't catch this yesterday when we were going through the presentation, but that money that's showing in here is local STBG, I believe is what has been, is the average of what was programmed in the TIP. We actually get like 1.5 million annually in local STBG. So that showed 3.5 for an annual number, but I think that's because that's looking at what's been programmed in the TIP over the past 5 years, but not actually the amount of money that we get for local STBG.
Okay, yeah, we'll go ahead and adjust that then, Leslie.
This is Jimmy. I'll springboard off of what Leslie just said. And just as a clarification piece, like on this one, Troy, would you say the terminology would be correct of saying TDOT and VDOT projects or MTPO projects? We just want to make sure we distinguish them. So okay. So I guess having some clarification in the plan that just distinguishes that. And the only reason why I bring that up is sometimes it is there's a point difference when it is explicitly described or in reference to maybe a difference in interpretation of how many points you should get from something being in a plan. So we just want to make sure it's as accurate as possible. Thinking in the terms of smart scale from our side of the hill. Just an extra asterisk.
Mhm. And, Sean, I don't know if you have any thoughts in terms of the advanced construction or any concerns.
Jim, I think I'd like to see how it's actually presented in the plan. I don't know if you
Okay.
guys have actually documented anything yet, but yeah, it just wanted to be cautious in how we're presenting it.
Okay. So Leslie, Bill, I'll get back with you guys and we'll talk a little bit more about that.
Jim, we have one question from Amber.
Hold that thought. Hold on, Amber. Let me get you this, so I don't have to repeat.
This plan, how often do we do it? Every 5 years, but it's a 20-year horizon, correct? And then the tip,
Yep.
the tip is we do it, okay, for Virginia and Tennessee. So, and now the other part of my question that I'm getting at is the bike ped plan that we're simultaneously working on. Will that be just cross-referenced in this LRTP, or will they be incorporating everything we've already, right?
Yeah, so no, good question. So the LRTP does pull in some of the findings in terms of, some of the existing conditions and discussion about the priorities. So we've incorporated, for example, some of the traffic, the level of traffic stress maps into here. We've incorporated that into some of the analysis that we've done. So that information is coordinated. The LRTP does point, to the plan if there are some specific more detailed information on, say, conditions, that type of thing. However, we do pull in the priority projects and recommendations from the bike plan, and that gets incorporated into the LRTP. So one of the things that we haven't really touched on is obviously how much money is received for those type of improvements through TAP and that type of funding. So we generally, at least my experience has been that we're not necessarily programming as many projects or looking at specific projects with the non-motorized. But we are talking about, you know, what type of revenue has been received over the years and what we would expect or kind of project through the life of the plan. So does that answer your question, Amber?
Yeah, it does. It's just hard to keep up, and, you know, in the beginning of this meeting, we did our rankings, and it seems like every project you've hit on were also in our rankings. And so I want to, of course, make sure they're all cross-referenced. Because as Troy just said, if it's not in the plan, we can't do it. But, you know, if we overlook something, we'll catch it again next go around. So it's not like we have 20 years of not being able to update this. I know it's a lot of work, and I've been on the board 21 years now. You'd think I'd know all of this, but I just want to make sure that there's coordination between everything we've already been working on through these multiple efforts simultaneously. So thank you so much.
Yep, absolutely. And yeah, and that, as well as some of the, you know, transit planning, we're incorporating, you know, recent studies on that as well to incorporate that into the plan. So this is really kind of that, you know, again, flying at the 40,000 foot level, but, you know, we want to make sure, and we have to make sure that everything is, as you pointed out, is consistent. It's reflected in here, and we don't want to have any issues or, you know, as we start to move into the projects, into the programming and into the tip and that. So, you know, and I, you know, this obviously, just one more point I'll make. And again, at the beginning of the meeting, you talked about those priority projects, and those are reflected, and our analysis shows, you know, that those are priorities or needs. You know, what we end up having to do then as part of the LRTP is really looking at kind of where these projects could fall given the revenues, and going through this process of, you know, year of expenditure costs and all of that. So that is an LRTP requirement that, you know, takes it a little bit further. But, you know, to your point about this plan is updated every 5 years, you know, we really want to make sure that we get those first, you know, 5 years band kind of projects, those priority projects, right? You know, obviously things could change in that 2036 to 45 year band, but or even the 26 to 35, and you guys, you know, make amendments as you go and that type of thing. But, you know, we want to come up with a plan that is realistic in terms of, you know, how much revenue we have available and what we can do. So.
Well, Jim, I think it goes without saying, y'all have done an awesome job, and you and Soraya, and I just found out that Soraya is no longer there. So, but y'all
She
done
is,
on that. So your efforts are appreciated continually.
yeah, no, well, thank you. I appreciate that. And Sean, she's a good pickup for federal highways. So,
I don't think I realized she came to FHWA. Where, which office is she in, Jim?
She's going to be in DC working on, I think, on resiliency. So doing some
Very
work
cool.
there, so.
Well, thank you all.
One thing to mention, Jimmy, and we haven't really talked about transit, but I had a question for the transit folks. With the pandemic and, you know, change of service and issues going on there, plus and just changing demographics, has there been any studies or any, you know, any thought about the future of how you're going to serve people? It may be different. Have y'all done studies that we're not aware of in transit service for the future?
Well, I'll actually, item number 8 under project updates, I was going to let them get a little spiel so they can chew on that while they can bring it up. So, but yeah, plan's a big piece of what we all do. All right, moving right along to item number 7. 2022 executive board meeting dates are listed. Leslie.
Okay, The past several years, you all have wanted to piggyback on Bristol MPO's meetings, which they have theirs at 10 a.m. and we've been doing ours at 1:30, just to give people a little bit of a lunch break, but still if people travel, from TDOT or VDOT or whatever, from out of the area, to give them time to get back home as well. So when I sent the agenda out, we had February 3rd, May 5th, August 4th, and November 3rd as the dates. And then Troy reminded me the Tennessee MPO Association Conference will actually be during that May 5th week. So I was looking at pushing it to May 12th. So if you all wanted to go ahead and set dates, be February 3rd, May 12th, August 4th, and November 3rd at 1:30. Is that what you all want to do again or something different? Everybody's good with the
Good for us.
regular dates?
Yep.
Okay, so February 3rd, May 12th, August 4th, and November 3rd at 1:30 is what we'll plan on for 2022. Of course, maybe special meetings if something comes up that needs immediate assistance or immediate attention, sorry.
Thank you, Leslie. Item number 8, federal and state partner updates and project updates. Leslie's got a list that we'll go down and just let us know.
Okay, Sean, we'll let you go first, but if there's anybody as an attendee from TDOT that wants to give any kind of update, just raise your hand or send me a message in the chat box so I can, so we can fix this to allow you to speak. Otherwise, Sean, Federal Highway, go ahead.
Thank you, Leslie. I appreciate you guys offering the virtual meeting option here. Would love to be able to participate in person and planning to be able to do so just as soon as we're able to. But again, appreciate the virtual offering. And as Leslie mentioned, I have been away from the Tennessee division for the last 4 months on a rotational assignment for a different office in FHWA. But I'm back. If there's anything that you all need from FHWA, please feel free to reach out. The only real update is about the uncertainty of our funding situation, which I'm sure everyone knows about and has heard about. As you all know, we were furloughed for a day right at the start of the federal fiscal year. We did get a 30-day extension of the FAST Act to the end of October, and now we've got another extension of the FAST Act out to December 3rd. So what that means for project obligations and for funding apportionments is that basically we apportion funding at a prorated rate according to the amount of time that the extension is. So I think we apportioned about 8.5% of the annual allocations for our federal funding programs to cover the October extension, and we'll apportion, I can't remember the amount, but just not a full year's allocation to get through the funding that we have through December 3rd. So that does put state DOTs in a difficult position when they're making decisions on funding obligations and advancing projects. So not to speak for either of the state DOTs here, but just to provide a little bit of context, if there are any concerns about being able to advance projects. So of course, if we hear anything on any future infrastructure bills that do get passed or anything else, we'll be sure to update you guys. In general, we find out about it when most everyone else does in the news. But if we do get any other information, we'll be sure to share. So that's the only update I've got, Leslie. Happy to take any questions or anything.
Any questions for Sean?
Cool. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Sean.
Okay, VDOT.
Yeah, you, quick update.
Under plans and studies, if you want to add Project Pipeline US 23, just so everyone's aware, we have a new study initiative at VDOT, and it's called Project Pipeline. We study 5 locations within the district, potentially take them to some sort of potential plans in hopes that they seek funding through smart scale or other avenues. We're studying US 23 from the Tennessee-Virginia state line to US 2358 intersection. We've had numerous meetings with MTPO staff as far as the localities as well. So we're working toward our second phase of that coming up here in the next few weeks, which will be some sort of official recommendations. We'll start testing those and running those to see what type of feedback we get. We'll come out to the community with a survey probably early of the year, potentially, just to survey them on the recommendations that we're looking at. So stay tuned on that one. We're hopeful that the MTPO will place in a smart scale application for our next funding cycle, which opens in March of 2022 for this corridor. The other thing I'll let everyone know, just as a general update, our revenue forecast was lower than what actually has came in. So our revenues are much higher. With that being said, if anyone follows the CTB meetings, which is our Commonwealth Transportation Board, we have a significant amount of increase in funding that came to the Bristol district. With that means you have to choose what projects or what areas that fund is spent on. Our district leadership made the determination that they would simply run down the most recent smart scale list to select as far as they could until the money ran out. That funded us 3 additional projects within the Bristol district, taking our total for the round 4 of smart scale north of $100 million. We funded Route 11 in the city of Bristol, Virginia, the finalized portion of it to get it fixed in front of Walmart. And then the other project that we funded outside of this MTPO was in Bluefield, Virginia, but the one we funded within the MTPO that is interesting is in Gate City, Scott County, just above the 2358 intersection I mentioned earlier. It will have some different components to it. An R-cut will be installed at that location for a U-turn. And then there will be some restriction of movements happening that take you into the gas station, and we will clean up that elongated left turn lane that everyone gets confused with as far as are you turning into the gas station or are you going to the intersection, which has caused numerous accidents at that location. So that's pretty exciting. That will be a funded project in smart scale. The board did. Yes, they did a resolution for it last year. We were looking for it to be submitted again in the smart scale, but now that we know it's probably going to get funded, and I say it's going to get funded, I'm very confident. This was given to the CTB last month. There were no real qualms or questions about it. Each district did things slightly different. It does appear that at this month's meeting, which is in 2 weeks, that will get approved officially, and then we'll see that added to our list of projects. So that's pretty exciting. So. Do what now? It's one of the 3 projects with the increase in revenue. Yes, we spent our increase on 3 additional smart scale projects. Yeah, you had to pull from existing projects that planning work had been done on. You couldn't really just pick something out of the blue. So we went with smart scale because it typically out of our funding mechanisms has the most legwork that's been completed. So I think that's it.
Thank you, Blake.
Okay, I'll pass the mic to TDOT. And then you can just pass it on down.
Thanks, Leslie. Couple of things real quick. The traffic signalization modernization program, say that 3 times fast, is currently open. December 1st is the deadline. I've sent it to your all's traffic shop already. But if there are any cities that or counties that want some money to maybe fix some of your signals or upgrade some of your signals, it takes care of your controls, controllers, cabinets, whole shoot match on these. It is currently open right now, and there is a considerable amount more money that has been put into this. We'll just get rid of the signals. But that money is available. So if you do not have it, if you don't have any information on it, please let me know. And I can forward an email to you as well. But all those go to Steve Bryan in headquarters as far as the update. And the other thing, biggest thing we have going on is last year we did the urban transportation planning grant for MPOs. We did the community transportation planning grant for the RPOs. We've got rid of both of those and combined it into one. We have a transportation planning grant. It just makes it a little bit easier for us to roll everything out. There will be a educational webinar on this November 9th at 12:30. So anyone who wants to apply for it, if you have questions about it, it's in there. So you can go to the webinar, you can listen. It will be recorded as well. So, and it'll be posted on the website. but you can go and ask questions, see what's going on, see if it would apply. And there's lots of different type of projects this is good for. So the Center Street project, I believe, is one of our urban transportation planning grants. Yes. 10% match on the urban grant or the transportation plan grant. I don't know what it is for the signalization. But I think we had about 4 or 5 times the amount of money in the signalization, which we brought that out a year or two ago. It came out, it was good information. I think we had $250,000 statewide. And of course, that funded a couple, across the state. This year, I think we're upwards of, it's $100,000 max improvement that we can do on an intersection, but it's somewhere upwards of 2 million. So they've really increased it because they had so many applications and such a high need. Past that, of course, y'all know we have a interim commissioner at this point. Commissioner Clay Bright has taken a new position in as the CEO, watching over the Ford expansion in West Tennessee. Bright, yeah, he is at the mega site. And as of this time, Joe Gabato is our current interim. And Joe is the director, what's his title? Deputy Commissioner, but it's over the administration. So there's 3 bureaus. You have planning and environment, you have Paul Degg's group, and then you have Joe's group. And Joe's group is the finance, HR, all that kind of, functionality of TDOT. So that's where that falls in. So.
Or I think he's the CFO.
Thanks. Do it. Correct. Yes. Commissioner Bright, former Commissioner Bright, now he was appointed to that position specifically by the governor. So with that. Yep. So with that, if there are any questions. Okay, I'll go ahead and hand this over to Mr. Farmer here, and he'll give us our project updates.
So Eric here's already went over the 126, 36 and the Rock Spring Road projects when we did the project ranking. So if y'all got further questions, we can ask them and he'll try to answer those. But the State Route 93 improvements, it says 3 sections. One of those sections is under construction right now with a tentative completion at the end of the month. They're working on some utility work completions, sidewalks, and dressing up behind the curb and gutter. The Memorial Boulevard, Fort Henry Drive intersection improvement was completed in August 4th. Hawkins County, Independence, and Hammond, those are safety jobs, and we're still trying to get the contractor to show up to complete the project. It's been going on for a little while. They come apparently a couple of days a week to do some work, blaming COVID. I will talk on the I-81 ITS expansion project because I've been to several meetings on that one. They're actually getting their environmental documents and boundaries done on that project. And they're also, our ITS group in Nashville is communicating with VDOT because some of that system will be located inside Virginia, and also talking with a fiber company that's possibly coming down the I-81 corridor. So with those, speaking of 93s, I've been prodded to discuss this a little bit as well. We resurfaced State Route 93 from I-26 to Stone Drive. We left out a few little spots that most people notice we didn't pave. 2 of those, the one over the North Fork of the Holston River at Eastman and the one bridge over Shipley Street, they will be let next year for bridge repair projects. So they were omitted from the resurfacing project. The next section there that was left out is from Lincoln Street intersection up the hill just past the CSX railroad overpass. And with our dealings with the railroad, that project to replace that bridge is going to be coming in 23. So instead of trying to double up on the CSX agreements, we eliminated that section as well. So they'll stay unpaved and we'll maintain potholes as we need to, along with the city, to fix that corridor. But we will see a lot of work on the 93 corridor starting next year as well, because we've got the 2 bridge repair jobs that'll be let, and then we'll be continuing the resurfacing from State Route 1 to the Virginia line. It's not ours. Let's see, Kingsport.
Fred, look on the list, the only projects we haven't listed is the Fort Robinson Drive Bridge project. Otherwhere, we've had that going long time in development. We have made a decision. There was it's a very kind of unique situation with a really deep fill Flippo Road. So we've made a decision working with our structures and geotech office. So we will be moving forward with the final right-of-way plans. We're going to submit those and begin acquisitions. That should be taking place maybe this month. It'll be before the end of the year. And then we'll look at a late 2022 next year for letting. A bridge. Not a box. The other two sections, the State Route 93, the Rock Bluff section, which is kind of goes on through the Washington Sullivan County line. That project was submitted for construction in September. We have it scheduled in December letting. So 4 weeks from tomorrow, we'll fingers crossed. That is bracketed together with some projects in Carter County. So those are having difficulty getting let. So hopefully put them all together. We'll get some good bids on it. Let's see here. I believe we've hit upon everything. Then drop your paper. Sure.
Turn that thing on.
Okay. So with that, I've had my second heart attack now.
Okay, so the Island Road rebuild was asked. We are still working to get a final NEPA document. Is that correct, consultant? Yeah, we are continuing to persevere down the environmental document train. Is there any others that people would like an update on? It is from Memorial Boulevard to near the golf, the
So if the MTPO board meeting trashed out the sound system, we're not liable
Okay.
for it.
I'm using
right?
my computer microphone now. Can you hear me?
Yep. Actually, that's good.
Yeah, something, I don't know. Did y'all hear them big loud noises?
Heard something. Yeah.
It was really loud in the room. Okay. So the urban transportation planning grant for the East Center Street study on Tuesday, November 9th, there's an open house at the Renaissance Center from 5 PM to 7 PM. And that will be looking at the options that the consultant has come up with. They're actually looking at East Center Street. So the study's from Sullivan Street to Fort Henry Drive, but they're looking at the section that's west of Wilcox Drive that had the road diet done. And then also different options for the section that's east of Wilcox. And then also some land use around that corridor. So if you're interested in seeing all those different options they've come up with, giving feedback, Tuesday evening from 5 to 7 at the Renaissance Center in the first floor courtyard. And then Federal Highway Administration Local Road Safety Plan. Most people on the board should have gotten an invitation to that. This is looking at the whole MPO area. It's going to be a local road safety plan that the consultant for Federal Highway will be working on. So that's kicking off early December. I think you're ready. Okay, we're going to try to switch back to the overhead speakers. Hold on just a second. Testing, testing. Can you hear me online?
Yes.
Great. Okay, so now I'll give it back to Jimmy.
All right, so transit is next up. So I want to pass this loud fancy baton to Michael, who's going to give it to, we'll start with Mitch Elliott. So Mitch, I'll softball you some topics. Okay, you ready? I'm ready. I don't know about this mic, but I'm ready. Yeah. Metlink.
Yes.
Metco. Bill's question about there's any plans or studies or what do y'all do? And rebrand.
Okay, of course, we're from the Virginia side of things, and we're working on two projects. One of them is from the FTA. There's a project called Micro Transit, and we're working on that in the Wise Norton area. Of course, Wise has the University of Virginia at Wise, and it's about a 10 mile radius that we. What they do is VIA, who is the operates this, they come in and they create an app to put on the telephone, and you can book a ride on the telephone. Of course, we're all demand response, and you have to have a 24-hour notice to ride one of our buses. So we can, with the micro transit thing in that area, we can. I think the last report we had that we could, if you need to book a ride, we could be there in under 10 minutes. So it's been extremely successful as far as allowing people the option to get where they need to go. People have a virtual bus stop. They get on there and they book their ride, and then we take them where they need to go. And of course, they book a return ride. So I think last week we broke a record that we had 106 trips. We have 3 little vans. We did 106 trips and transported 155 people, which is really, really good as far as that goes. So what we did with MetGo, we introduced a project called MetLink, and Nikki is the mobility manager for us. And MetLink is going to link, MetGo to the Tri-Cities area, so that MetLink, we would have a kind of like a shuttle system that would run from Wise and actually it would pick up people from Lee County and Scott County as well to Kingsport. We've been working with some of the folks at CATS on this, and we did a TDP I know we've heard enough acronyms and today to last a lifetime, but but anyway, transit development plan. We did a transit development plan, and 74% of the people that did the survey said that they needed transportation to Kingsport. So, and I'm pretty sure there's probably some people in Kingsport that need to come back to Wise County or to Virginia as well. So we're working with those folks as far as being able to to work together where we could take those routes and make them worthwhile from going both ways. And of course, with the ballot expansion or buying the hospitals and things, most of your important medical procedures are in the Tri-Cities now. So we would have an option to get people back. And then to add to that, next week, November 13th, they're going to have in Bristol, they're going to have a ribbon cutting ceremony they're going to have a link called Virginia Breeze is what this is called. And Virginia Breeze is now going to come, I think Radford now is as close as they come. So they're going to come to Bristol. They're going to have a pickup point at exit 5. And from exit 5, you can go from that exit. I think actually I can tell you exactly where this route will stop it'll stop in Washington, DC. There'll be 7 stops along the line. It'll pick them up in Bristol. It'll go to Withville, Radford, Christiansburg, Salem, Harrisonburg, Dulles International Airport, and Falls Church. And this is the state funding is part of this. And it would cost you anywhere from $15 to $59 to go from exit 5 in Bristol to Washington, DC. It'll have a northbound route that they'll leave Bristol 11 o'clock. It'll have a northbound route, and then it'll have a southbound route. So this will be 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So if we can coordinate MetLink or MetGo and MetLink to and coordinate with the Tri-Cities to get people to Bristol. So we have somebody could get online, like a college student or something can get online and make one call and be able to go from, well, let's say in the farthest point that we would be UVA and Wise could go to Washington, DC or any place on the East Coast once you got to Washington, DC. So it's an exciting thing. It's a good way to get people back in the buses or transit, but also the FTA for some time has been they've been looking for something like this that they could make work where they could coordination. I guess all of us in the room know that's the big word, coordination, collaboration. That's what they are. If you're going to ask for any money, you better have some coordination and collaboration involved. But anyway, the ultimate goal is for someone to get into, they would just get on there and book a trip and then they would work out the process. So the folks from the Virginia Breeze folks they've got 3 other, I think there's 3 other in the state that goes in different directions. And it's been extremely successful, far above what they thought it would be. So we're, our region and the region here is, it is really a great opportunity for all of us that we can just work together and collaborate. And of course, we all know if we cross state lines, there's some, I hate to say this word, red tape involved, but if we can get beyond that, and it'll be great for our people. But the VIA thing, one of the things, and am I going past the limit? I know everybody's tired, but anyway, the VIA thing was something in Southwest Virginia. We were always told, well, they don't enough people knows how to use a telephone or smartphone to make this happen. But that's been proven wrong. And of course, most grandparents are raising their grandchildren nowadays. And so you can take any 3rd grader out here and they could probably go in there and book a trip and get you anywhere you need to go. So anyway, it's a really great opportunity for all of us to work together. And like I said, we've been talking to some of the folks and Nikki doing the mobility management part of it is, we have this problem getting people to Johnson City or getting, and then the option is getting people to to Bristol where, they could meet the Virginia breeze and go where. So we're glad to work with anybody but I think this will be the future of transportation in rural areas for sure. Bill. On the breeze, it's like the mega bus that you would see on the highways. In fact, mega bus is the one that, yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So, and I want to see this happen. They say they can go from Bristol to Washington DC in 7 hours. I'd like to see that happen.
How many stops?
Yeah, 7 stops.
Yeah.
If that can happen, I will be the first one to congratulate them.
You start at 11 o'clock. And
Yeah.
you arrive in DC
Yeah.
at 6 p.m.
Yeah, so if that happens, I don't think you can get from, yeah, I don't think you could get from Alexander to Washington, but in 7 hours sometimes. But anyway, that's kind of what's happening. They're doing a lot of this. They're doing a lot of these studies to get people back in buses. Highlands Rhythm is the name of that route. If you'd like to check that out, you can go on to drptvirginia.gov and they've got all the information on there. But I'm sure if you'd like to be in Bristol, they're going to have it at the Country Music Hall of Fame, not Hall of Fame, but birthplace of country music there. So.
While Michael's giving the microphone to our friend Pat.
Okay, hey, and we did meet with MEOC. I'm really excited about, and I was interested to hear from them. They have a lot of exciting things going on. I'm extremely impressed with the VIA app and the success they're having with that program. So it's a lot of good stuff you guys are doing. As far as CATS is concerned, we're doing well. My updates are that we have received the funding for the phase 2 transit garage. So the next step for that will just be going out and seeing who is interested in bidding on that project. So we're looking forward to that. We also have a dial-a-ride promotion going on right now. We do this every November, and it is for our demand response program. A lot of people save for this and look forward to this promotion. So we're offering our $24 ticket book with 24 tickets in it for $12. And so these don't expire, unlimited tickets. So this is a big promotion that we have going on right now. So very excited to tell you that our workforce is almost fully staffed. We have someone coming on hopefully latter part of November. And when they do, we will be fully staffed for the first time since the fall of 2017. So that's pretty exciting. Having just come from a TIPTA conference, Tennessee Public Transportation Association a couple of weeks ago, and having some information sharing with some other transit agencies. I mean, we all are dealing with COVID-related, pandemic-related frustrations, but it is being discussed, immensely. It's being worked on. Staffing continues to be an issue, getting people to come aboard and stay. So there's a lot of good information being shared on what other agencies are doing and what's working, what's successful, what we should continue to do, maybe what we discontinue to do. CATS is still out of service from 12:30 to 1:30, still sanitizing vehicles. That's probably going to remain for a good bit. We still have the plexiglass up in all of the vehicles. That's going to also remain for quite a bit. So I would say the only down part of what we see really going on right now, of course, we want to see ridership get back. And if gas prices remain what they are, we will probably see that coming more and more. But there's an automotive shortage and there's problems there we've got several vehicles that are on order and have been on order for a long time. And that's the frustration piece that we see. We need to get some vehicles replaced, and we're just being told, there's just a shortage. So there's delay in that. So of course that gets involved with your TAM plan, your transit asset management plan, and how that all plays out. But mostly I say all positive things going on over here, but with always keeping the pandemic things in mind. Any questions?
Thank you. At NetTrends, our new mobility manager just started this week, Tracy. So we are definitely grateful to have her and grateful to have this position where we can better serve our riders in all of our areas and work with other agencies to try to get people where they need to go. And in whatever means that is, and connect different cities and places, because that is an issue with people, even with us, trying to get people who want to go from, this place to this place. Sometimes we can't accommodate that. And so hopefully we'll be able to work with different agencies and trying to get that worked out. Our new website went live recently. We updated our website, and now our riders can book trips online and pay for them online. So that is going to be definitely helpful. And we've already seen people utilizing that. It's going fairly well with some hiccups, but that's to be expected. But that's another avenue for our riders to be able to use and utilize. And it seems to be that they are doing so. We are still short in staff and drivers, and it's awesome to hear that you all are going to be fully staffed. That's unheard of. So kudos to you all, and that's great. We just finished the new hire class, so we did hire some new drivers. Our ridership is improving. It's definitely not where it was pre-pandemic levels, but we are getting close to that. I mean, it's up there. And so now, as Candace said, the hardest part is keeping people staffed, having enough drivers to take those people where they need to go. And so that is one of our concerns. And then vehicles, we're in the same boat there. We are lucky. We just received 3 transits, that we ordered in January, and we're still waiting on one. But I've got several more that I need to order, but can't order. So that's definitely a concern of ours, as with everyone else. But that's pretty much everything that's going on I can think of with us.
Thank you all.
When you sent me Tracy's name yesterday, I thought I recognize that name because I worked with you when you were at Frontier Health on some tip stuff. Yeah. And I did add you to our email list. Sorry, Jimmy. If everybody has not signed in, make sure you sign in. And if you are not on my email distribution list and you want to be, sign in on this sheet as well with your email address.
Right here beside the map. All right, move right along to agenda item number 9, public comments. Members of the public may address us regarding the region's transportation system. Anybody from the public wants to address us?
Anybody online, raise your hand.
Questions, comments, concerns online? Hearing none. I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Made by Michael, second by Troy. I think they had it planned. All those in favor? Oh,
No, I don't do a roll call on it.
No roll call on
You
that.
had it right.
Proclamation. Yay. Thank you all.
And thank
Safe
you all
travels going home.
online for attending as well.
Thank you all.
Happy Thanksgiving.
And Michael, stop the recording.